Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and nanas and papas, or if you prefer, grandmothers and grandfathers, and baseball fans everywhere, welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League's video podcast. Hello, everybody. It's Monday night, and that means it is Podcast Monday. Yep, on Mondays, typically the Valley League is off. We all know because of the weather and the rain that almost never happens as we get the first week or two into the season. But given the fact that we're rewinding our season this year and in 2020 we're replaying the best games from 2019, we don't have to worry about weather. And if things continue to progress in Winchester the way they're set up to progress, the Royals will have an artificial turf, and not only will we be able to play in Winchester, we'll also be able to play in Harrisonburg. For those of you who don't know, Eagle Field does have an artificial turf, and they're often playing games when the rest of us can't. All you got to do is walk into that outfield in Winchester when the water's up around your ankles, and you understand why. So hopefully those days are going to be gone here really soon. Thank you to Shenandoah. If you want to know more about that, you can check out a podcast we did with Kevin Anderson. You can also check out a podcast we did with Scott from SU as well. Anyway, enough about that. Tonight we are talking about a league of their own. We've got Austin Gisriel sitting down with Erin Summers, and they're talking about the place and everything related to baseball around it, where A League of Their Own was filmed. Here, give a listen to Austin and Erin.
Hey, baseball fans. Erin Summers here, your Valley League baseball reporter. I am happy to be joined by Austin Gisriel. He has covered baseball across many summer leagues for many years. He's written a ton of fantastic stories. So we'll have to get Austin's take on a lot of topics here, and he'll have to let us know where we can read all of that by the end of this discussion. But Austin, let's just start out with, where are some of the summer baseball teams that you've gone and seen?
Sure. Well, first of all, Erin, it's nice to be with you, and I think the one league outside of the Valley League that's really stood out to me is really one that's probably not that well known, called the Ohio Valley League, which is mostly centered in Indiana. And my baseball buddy and I, we started playing ball in 10th grade together. That was the beginning of our friendship, and we won't do the math on how long ago that was. We took a trip out to Louisville, Kentucky to see the Hillrich and Bradsby Bat Factory. This was, I think, 2017. So, we were going to be out there a couple days, and what other baseball things can we see? So we found this summer college league up in Huntingburg, Indiana, and they played at this place called League Park. So, that was cool. We'll go see a summer game or summer league game, see how this compares to the Valley League. And we get there, and it's like 102 degrees that night. I mean, it's just steaming. But it was a very cool visit, because as it turns out, League Park is named for the movie A League of Their Own, which is where the movie people shot that film. And they came to the town. Of course, they were looking for a ballpark that had that right ambiance for the 40s. And they said, we found our place, because there's not like a McDonald's past the left field wall, that would interfere with the ambiance. And the town said, you do whatever you want, but we're just telling you, whatever you do, you have to leave for us. And the filmmakers, that was fine with them. So they put in lights, but you walk in, and they've left the billboards. It's still, like 1943, buy war bonds out there in left field. And the players are dressed in 1943 vintage uniforms with the stirrups and, the vests. And this particular team sold beer. So their vendor ladies were all dressed as the Rockford Peaches from the Girls Professional League back in the 40s, keeping with that theme of, a league of their own. And it was just a fantastic experience. It was so much fun. And here's this, as I said, we'd never heard of this league. As you know, they seem to multiply every year. Now, later on, we might talk about how the fact that that's probably ceasing and going the other way as of this, virus-filled summer.
Currently, there are 36 summer league teams. Or summer leagues. Sorry, right. 36 summer leagues. So yeah, at the moment, but who knows what may happen.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's interesting to me, because I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, I counted them up just off a list, and I think there were 43. So obviously some have contracted, which again, that's a whole nother issue. We can get into that maybe a little bit later in our discussion. But, the visit to Huntingburg and the Ohio Valley League was really, it was thoroughly enjoyable. And, got to talk to the owners there, did a little video on it, and have stayed in touch with them, and they want to know what's going on in the Valley League. And it was real Indiana Midwest hospitality. If we were there when it was 102 degrees, we must be baseball fans. So we, like everybody in the park, was just like, yeah, how you doing? Welcome. We're glad you made it and that you came out here. And the park is beautiful, and the playing surface is great. So that was just a real good baseball evening. And I say that specifically because, they had their little gimmicks, between innings. Several of those involved the Peaches, who would come out and do, some sort of dance routine. But there was not a carnival. There was not a merry-go-round. There were not, goofy mascots all over the place. It was a baseball evening. And for a purist like me, that was just wonderful. The other league I've had some familiarity with is down in Florida, which is the Florida College Summer League. Their biggest problem is when they start the games, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 o'clock in the evening, they can hardly get through a season because every game's halted by lightning. The Florida Summer League is between, I guess the easiest way to put it is between Orlando and Gainesville. So it's right there in central Florida, maybe 2.5 hours due west of Tampa Bay, something like that. Let's just say there are a lot of lightning strikes in Florida in the summer in this particular area. But their championship game is played at Tampa Bay Stadium. And, it's a one game. It's a game before a regular Tampa Bay game. So sometimes they have logistical issues getting it in. But I always thought that was a really cool reward for those kids to be able to play that final championship game in a major league ballpark.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Cape Cod League does their all-star game at one of the big parks as well up there. I think it might rotate, but they do have an opportunity to get into a big league park. We know the Cape Cod League is is the oldest wood bat league in the country, and the Valley is right up there with them. Both have been around in some sort of fashion since the late 1800s.
Right. Well, I was actually doing a little research in my own book, which I'll shamelessly hold up for people to see the cover, called Safe at Home, Season in the Valley, which I followed the 2009 Newmarket Rebels. But of course, I needed to do a little bit of background for what this league was all about, and found that the Valley Baseball League starts in 1922. So it's coming up on a centennial. Interestingly enough, it was essentially town ball now, and where every town, and if you're a baseball person, you're familiar with this, 20s, 30s, 40s, the factory had a team, the local factory, the towns had teams, and that was the big rivalry. You would get a couple thousand people out to watch a game in a town of a couple thousand people. So, it was excitement, and it was a social event. But then it wasn't until 1961, interestingly enough, that the league was sanctioned by the NCAA, and the rule was then you were now allowed to bring in 2 players per team from a radius of further than 100 miles away. So you could recruit 2 college players is what it came down to filter in with your local ball players. And then ultimately that evolved to where we are now. And I think this is probably true with most of the leagues that have this kind of pedigree that go back at least to the 40s. I would imagine they were all town ball leagues, and then the college players began to filter in, and now they're what we know of today as the college wooden bat summer leagues.
Did you find in your research anywhere about when they started using wooden bats for the first time?
Yes, actually. It's a good thing I brushed up on this. I believe it was 1993 when they brought the wooden bats in, because heretofore they'd been using the aluminum bats. So like in the Valley League, I know one of the big players that played for the Newmarket Rebels, which was the team I was associated with, was Dan Pasqua, who went on to have a 10-year career with the Yankees primarily and then the White Sox. And they still talk about some of the home runs that he hit, like over the light tower, kind of movie Roy Hobbesian shots,
Sure.
But then there's always that little asterisk that storytellers at the end will say, of course, that was with an aluminum bat. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, earlier when you were talking, you were speaking about how you're a baseball purist and you like just, the pure baseball game, none of the crazy marketing that happens, a lot of what we see in minor league baseball, but it is a trend that we are seeing in summer league ball as well. It's turning more from, just the baseball game to entertainment overall to attract fans and get people there, because you do have changing players each year. So it's really hard to create relationships with a player and follow that player. So it's more of the entire team and the entertainment that it is of coming to a baseball game. How have you seen that evolution over the past several years?
I think different leagues are going about it in different ways. Obviously, for example, the team that's in Huntingburg, Indiana, which is officially the Du Bois County Bombers, they're the only team in their league that sells beer. And just like in a lot of other leagues, I know the Valley League in particular, is kind of an ongoing discussion of, do we really want to open ourselves up to alcohol sales, just because of you've got licensing and liability, and that requires more people to volunteer, to do that. So they decided that was how they were going to be able to really make a go of it, they're making a lot of money off their beer sales. And in Huntingburg, unlike in the Shenandoah Valley, if you really wanted to be in the city, from most points in the Shenandoah, you can be there in 90 minutes, northern Shenandoah in 60 minutes, and you've got a whole world of entertainment at your fingertips with just an hour's drive. Well, in Huntingburg, Indiana, that's just not the case. So that is still the focal point of that town's social life in the summer. And just parenthetically, let me add, that night after the game, we were driving to Evansville because there's an independent league team out there, and Evansville has a very historic ballpark. And we're on Route 70, which some of our viewers might be very familiar with. It runs from Baltimore all the way out to Colorado. That was the darkest stretch of Interstate 70 I have ever been on in my life. I mean, like here, on 70 in Frederick County, Maryland, Washington County, it's still rural, but you look off to the left or right and you see, lights from a little town, or there's a barn light, or there were no lights at all. So, they're out there. I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere, but they're limited in what they can do as an easy drive for entertainment. And back, I've kind of steered the answer to your question a little off center here, but alluding to the idea of all the various entertainment that goes on, and I get that. I understand that you want to bring people out to the ballpark. Maybe one of the spouses is not into baseball that much, but you give them the mascot and the T-shirt and whatever, and so it's worth their time. But
everybody loves a free T-shirt. It's crazy.
It free is, if it's free, it's me, right? That is for me. But I've said this in other podcasts, and I will hold to this point, that all that's great and that's fine. But if you're not educating your fans about your primary product and what's good about baseball and why and how they're able to enjoy just what's going on in the field, you're cutting yourself out from future fans. My buddy that I've alluded to that I take these trips has said it so beautifully. He said, when we were kids, we dragged our parents to the ballpark, and now parents have to drag their kids to the ballpark. And I just see that as a problem. I don't care if you're talking, Valley League or the big leagues. That's not good for the future of your customers.
The future of baseball has been a hot topic over the past few years, trying to figure out a way to get the younger generation interested in what people may think is a slower paced game. But I do find it very entertaining. There's a lot of different aspects to it that, the strategy, and then the individual just athleticism of some of these players. And they're hitting balls that are 100 miles per hour that are moving all over the place. It's pretty incredible when you do sit back and watch it. How do you feel about the pace of play and maybe some changes that might be implemented to attract some of the younger viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I think baseball at all levels sells its own product short. There's so much to it. Part of it is education. And I think, I know I'm sounding like the old guy because I'm an old guy. But, and I've talked to my buddies about this, my contemporaries. Like, nobody had to teach us the game. We would watch and we would play those tabletop games. And I'm not talking about video games because that was just, that would have just blown us away like it was something off of Star Trek if they'd have brought that to us when we were 10, 11. But the strategy games, and you saw how these percentages work when you roll that dice. So, and then there were always sort of the baseball mentors. Maybe it was your dad, uncle, older brother. But I can remember, as an Oriole fan, going out to Old Memorial Stadium, and I loved it when we had seats near the old guys who were, the cigar smoke was thick, and you could just listen in on their conversation. I say old guys, they're probably 20 years younger then than I am now, but when you're 10, like anybody over 20 is just an old guy. But they were so full of knowledge, and they talk about so easily, Dom DiMaggio was a better center fielder than his brother Joe. And he's like, well, who are they talking about? And there was this kind of excitement to learn about the game, not only the history, but how it was unfolding in front of you on the field. So if we don't have those mentors, like we used to necessarily, older brother, dad, so forth and so on, somehow we need to find a way to bring that kind of education to fans. And as a teacher, I know education, that word kind of scares people off, like, oh no, we're going to crack books and take a quiz and all that kind of stuff. But and if you're going to ask me right now, how do we do that? I'm not sure, but I do know that more people need to be educated about the nuances of the game and the beauty of the game, just like you're talking about. When you know what you're looking at, and some guy fields a ground ball, and I know I'll say this to my wife 100 times during the season. It's a routine ground ball to second base. We're watching TV, ball game on TV. And the guy fields it and he throws it to first, and I'll turn to her and say, people have no idea how difficult that play just was. Because it's 100 miles an hour right at his feet.
Right. They call it routine. And there's nothing routine about that for an average person. It'd be very difficult to scoop that ball up and then turn and then make a perfect throw that quickly.
Yes. And I think part of the lack of education is people don't play the game as much as they used to. And so, I get frustrated with these people, and they've been in all generations, sit up in the stands. Well, I could hit that. No, you couldn't. You wouldn't even see it. You wouldn't even see it in time to swing at it. So when you're watching, some major leaguer who's hitting 200 and he's only going to have a 2-year major league career, that guy is extremely special, and he is a very gifted physical specimen. And you can't throw like him, and you're not going to field a ball he hits. And so I do think there's not just the education, but there's the appreciation for the skill involved is missing because we don't play it as a society like we used to.
Good argument. I'll buy it. What are some of the things that you have enjoyed, the skill that you've seen in covering different college summer leagues?
That's a good question, because of course when you follow as I do, you watch college summer leagues and minor leagues, and then of course see major league games. You can see the skill level improve as you go up each level. Mm-hmm. And you watch these college guys, even at like SEC college ball, LSU and Florida, and they're the top-notch college players. And there's some of them, 3 or 4, and you think that guy's professional. And then there's 3 or 4 of his other starters on the team, of his teammates, and you go, no, he just doesn't, he's just not quite quick enough or fast enough or doesn't quite throw hard enough. So to me, that's interesting, when you watch the different levels, to see what the different skill levels are and how they do in fact progress, and why the minor league development program is necessary to get somebody to the big leagues. So, other than that, I mean, I could pick out 100 different things that I think, oh man, look at this thing that just happened on the field. Another example is when I see players moving before the pitch is thrown. And that's another thing that the average fan nowadays doesn't know to look for. And I know, in fact, the center fielder from 2009, the year I wrote the book, was a guy named Kevin Rufus. And I would sit behind home plate, and as the pitch was being delivered, he was moving, because he was reading where the pitch was going to be, inside or outside, and he was reading that batter swing as he started from center field. And before the game, during batting practice, as you know, I mean, it's like lollygag central in the outfield. Pitchers are goofing around, they're shagging fly balls, and it's a wonder somebody doesn't get hurt out there, taking a fly ball off their head when they're busy goofing off. Kevin would clear out everybody from center field. He wanted to read balls off the bat during batting practice to improve his skill. And so that was a little thing to me, that fans, if you don't show up, before the game, you would never see that. But that was, that impressed me quite a bit of his professionalism in that regard, that he was just trying to improve his craft in that way. And then when you see it applied in the game, it's like, yeah, that guy's doing just what he's supposed to do. Or you look up on a throw to third base, for example, right fielder comes in and fields a single, and he throws the ball to third, runners coming in the third, and you look up, and there's the left fielder standing there backing up third base, because that's what he's supposed to do. But even though it's what he's supposed to do, you still admire that somebody's got their head in the game enough that they are doing what they're supposed to do, because you don't always see that on a big league level either.
No, absolutely. You're going to see mistakes at all levels.
Hey, I am so sorry to do this to you, but I have to interrupt the conversation just for a second. We've got to pay tribute to our advertisers, but I also want to take a minute to encourage you all to subscribe, like, and share these video podcasts. Hopefully you like the rewind games we're bringing you, and hopefully you like these podcasts. We're trying to cover all of the bases, taking a look at baseball from every side, his side, her side, everything, the movie side, the player side, the coach's side. As you know, Dayton Moore said it best, the Valley League is first and foremost for the players, but it's also a starting block for coaches, umpires, trainers, broadcasters, all of the above. And we want to share all of that with anyone who will listen. So please subscribe, like, and share. And we also want to listen to you. So if you have any thoughts on what we're doing, how we're doing it, please send those to vbleague@isomermedia.com. That's vbleague@isomermedia.com. We'd love to hear from you. Now, here's Erin paying tribute to the sponsors who help make what we do possible.
The Valley Baseball League would like to take a few moments to recognize our sponsors. We'd first like to thank New York Times best-selling historical romance author and VBL Uber sponsor Grace Burrows. For 3 years now, she has helped make our live streams possible. Be sure to visit graceburrows.com. That's Grace, BURROWES.com, to say thank you. And please note that Grace is wishing everyone in the VBL family the best of happily ever afters. We'd like to thank the Miller Auto Group, proud sponsor of the Northern Division. Although car buying may not be a necessity at the time, the Miller Auto Group would like you to know that they are here for you whenever you are in need. If a new or used vehicle is not the priority, but service is, feel free to schedule an appointment online at your convenience. Visit them at drivemiller.com. That's drivemiller.com to find the sales, service, or parts you need. We'd also like to thank 47, sponsor of the official on-field cap of the Valley Baseball League. Shop your favorite headwear and apparel styles at 47brand.com. They also make official Major League stuff too. So if you're missing your favorite MLB team right now, just think 47brand.com. We'd like to thank Stephen Toyota in Harrisonburg, proud sponsor of the Valley Baseball League Southern Division. Save time when shopping for your new Toyota, Toyota Certified Used, and Stevens Select vehicle when you start your deal online with Stevens Toyota's online shopper system. Visit us today at stephentoyota.com. That's stephentoyota.com. We'd also like to thank Rawlings, maker of the official baseball of the Valley League and Major League Baseball. And finally, we'd like to thank Signs USA for providing awards and banners to the league. When you need a sign, award, or banner, thank Signs USA. SignsUSVA.com.
All right, now that we've paid tribute to our amazing sponsors that help us do what we do, it's time to get back to the conversation Erin had with Austin Gisriel.
I think that you make some good points about watching things, being there early. It's a lot of different things you can glean from being there in person and seeing people's mannerisms. That's why I enjoy being courtside or sideline or down there on the baseball diamond, and kind of bring a different angle of things, a different view to the fans that are watching on TV, which is one of the developments that we've had in a lot of the summer leagues, is that they are streaming their games online now. You mentioned the book was written in 2009. You've been around it for a long time. What are some of the other major developments that you've noticed?
I think, and I kind of hesitate to say this, but it is something that I've noticed. I think there's a diminution of talent in the summer league level. And it's primarily because, what did you say? It was 36 leagues now, which is, that's a lot of ball players you need for summer leagues. And I know, whereas 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you were talking about big time Division I players, and at a time when when college baseball wasn't such a big thing. So the college ball players were kind of concentrated, and you did get, whole teams full of guys who were draftable, and they didn't necessarily make the majors, but they were good enough to go and play professionally. Mm-hmm. And now, you see a lot of rosters that Division II, Division III, and as we were just talking about earlier, you do see the skill improve as you go up in levels. So it's not that it's not entertaining, and it's not that it's great that those kids don't have a chance. It's wonderful they have a chance. But if having the 10 years between 2009 and now, there's definitely not the skill in the leagues. And I would say this applies almost to all the leagues that there was 10 years ago, or certainly 30 years ago.
Across the board, though, would you say that most of the leagues are on par with each other?
It seems to be that way, most of the leagues. And that's just, when I say it seems to be, I base that on nothing but just my own feeling and my sense of having seen some different games. I think for the most part, of course, you mentioned the Cape Cod League has always been top notch. And I've known guys, by the way, who've played in the Valley League, gone on the next year and played in the Cape Cod League and did not enjoy it nearly as much. And they've said because everybody up there is playing for himself. They want to attract the scouts. They're padding their numbers. They're trying to, have a good enough season that their bonus money goes up when they finally get drafted. Whereas the Valley League is more of an old-fashioned team concept. And I'm relating that from guys who've played that I've talked to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the Northwoods League is probably the other one, at least, in terms of east of the Mississippi, that really stands out. But they kind of run their league very professionally. It's imprinted on an old minor league. Their schedule is ridiculous for summer. I want to say they play 70-some games, and they sell beer at all the ballparks. And I know I mentioned this in a previous podcast. You want to buy a franchise in the Northwoods League, it's $1 million. $1 million. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me, because you're talking about amateur baseball. Now, of course, one of the reasons that business people want to get into college summer leagues and will pony up that kind of money is because their biggest expense, which is player salaries, they don't have. They're paying these guys zero.
Yeah.
And so if you can sell enough beer, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way, I mean, you're getting concessions, and you sell enough tickets, you're going to make some money, and then you also get to say, I own a baseball team. And I understand, I'd like to say that, I think that's a cool thing to be able to do. And if you've, there are a lot worse hobbies than you can have than putting $1 million down for a ball club.
Hey, I would like to just say I have $1 million, period. Baseball team
true.
or not.
That's very true.
But they do draw a ton of people up there in the Northwoods League. Madison, the Mallards, they draw 6,000 fans a game. It's incredible how many people come out to fill those ballparks.
It really is. And, to put that in context, the Sally League, South Atlantic League, I would bet, and I used to follow the attendance bulletin that came out after every season, but I would be willing to bet no team in the Sally League, which is low A, drew average 6,000 fans a game. Maybe there's one out there that's got a brand new ballpark, or possibly, but there's no way. Can't be more than 2 or 3 tops low A teams that would draw 6,000 a game.
Well, just a few years ago, a team came in from the Coastal Plain League and took over the Savannah Sand Gnats, who was a minor league team.
Right.
They couldn't get anybody to the ballpark, and now the Savannah Bananas that are there draw over 4,000 fans a game. They sell out every game. It's just a different concept, and they can kind of pour, I guess, more into it than maybe a minor league franchise that's underneath a major league franchise would be able to do. But yeah, there's a lot of differences in it. Some leagues that are nonprofit, some that are for profit, like the Northwood League, as you mentioned, which is another draw to owning a team in that league.
Right.
What have you seen as a difference between that structure?
Based on what I've seen in the Valley League, which is nonprofit and it's all volunteer, and a league like the Northwoods League, it's the Northwoods League is built, I want to say it's built for stability, because profit dictates what you do. And if you don't have the money as an owner, or you're not making money in that particular town, you're done. You're either selling it to somebody who can run it more efficiently or more profitably, or they're just that franchise is going to fold, and now somebody else can buy that a franchise and tuck it into another town. Whereas in the Valley League, there is that camaraderie of volunteerism, and it really is the town's team. Like Newmarket, again, for example, there are 1,800 residents, and that those boys become the boys of that town for 2 months of the summer. And it's really a beautiful thing to see. Mm-hmm. And yet every spring there's a scrambling for beds. Do we have enough host families? Do we have we paid the insurance on the bus? Do we get enough advertising revenue up front, to buy the baseballs that we need? And to me, again, this is just my own impression, I don't know how much longer that kind of small town mentality can continue. And when I say that, again, I don't mean that in a condescending way. That small town mentality brings a certain beauty and an ambiance to baseball. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's driving down the, up or down the valley, and there's lights on this ball field, and it's like magic. Like you just step back into the 30s. But what gives it its charm also makes it precarious as a business venture going forward. I know the Valley League used to have a team called the Rockingham, not Rockingham, I'll get it right here, Rockbridge Rapids. Lexington is the main town where the College of Washington Lee and VMI is located. And they played at Washington and Lee's ballpark, Captain Dick Smith Stadium, and that was beautiful. I mean, bathrooms in the dugout, which is a big deal for, most college summer league teams. And they had to fold, not because of attendance. They could not get the volunteers they needed to host the kids, host the ball players, and to just keep the thing functioning on a night-to-night basis. And it's a shame, but that's the reality of the nonprofit volunteer leagues.
I know I've always said that somewhere down the line, I would love to be a host family, because I think it would be such a fun summer to go to the ballpark and support these almost men that are trying to kind of increase their futures. Have you spent time with any host families? Do you have any good heartfelt, warm stories about some of their time with these players?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they make bonds that last for life. Get invited back to weddings, christenings, things like that. I know one player in Newmarket, and his name escapes me right now. He came back to Newmarket to get married, and he got the team bus, and that's what held the wedding party around. So he was very proud of his affiliation there, and obviously made a lot of close friends, not only on the team but in the community. And the guy, I used to do the webcasting with another gentleman, Charlie Dodge, who's just retiring this coming week from 35 years as a public school teacher. So if you're looking at this, Charlie, congratulations, you made it. And we had a great time doing the broadcast, and he and his wife Melissa were host family for 5 or 6 years, and they loved it. I mean, it was another son, and at that time their son was younger, and to have this older, like you said, man in the house setting a good example, just in terms of, when I said set a good example, dedicated to what he's doing, to summer, sacrificing his summer so that he could get better at his passion and sharing that passion. And I don't think it's necessarily that children in a host family have to have that baseball passion, but they see what passion is about and dedication to that passion. And so, there are many stories like that I know through the Valley of that kind of attachment. And I think that's the big thing is the attachment. Now, let me tell you a quick story, all the way back to 1981 that you'll find humorous in terms of player, host mom, John Kruk. Yes, the John Kruk played at Newmarket for 3 weeks before he was drafted by the San Diego Padres in 1981. And his host family was Bruce Alger's mom. If you're a Valley League person, you know who Bruce Alger is. Long time affiliated with the Newmarket Rebels and currently the president of the Valley League. Well, John liked the same soap operas that I think it was Bruce's grandmother liked. And so John would in the afternoon before he would have to go to the ballpark, they would sit there and watch the soaps. Well, he chewed tobacco at the time. And Mrs. Alger had just put down brand new white carpet. And she told him, "Don't you get any of that tobacco juice on my carpet." Well, let's just say, make a long story short, he did. And she chased him out of the house with a broom. And Bruce swears up and down that after she was done with him, he was too sore to play that night. He did not play anything in the game that night. And he swears it's because of the beating he took from getting his tobacco juice on the carpet. So, she wasn't happy at the time, obviously, but it's one of those things that's a warm memory. But I also go to that story that immediately, within 3 weeks, those two were close enough that's the kind of relationship that they had, that slob that he might have been at the moment. She was very comfortable chasing him around with a broom and whacking him, but good.
And he still wanted to come back after it was all done. He might not have been able to go play, but he came back and stayed a few more days.
Yes. It wasn't like I'm never going to host again or I want you out of my house. It was just like, if you do this is what happens to you, just so you understand.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really appreciate the time. We're able to get into some really cool areas of summer college baseball in general. Austin, if you want to kind of pub where people can go, see where your articles are, kind of find where your books might be.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. And I was just going to say, the John Kruk story is in a story, in a magazine-length article that you can download for free on Amazon. It's called Their Glorious Summer. It's about the Winchester Royals and the Newmarket Rebels and the rivalry they had during the summer when Major League Baseball was on strike. And not because I wrote it, it's a great story, and it has a great ending. And you'll recognize some of the names in there for sure. So that's Their Glorious Summer, free download on Amazon. So you can download that and then check that out and say, oh, well, this guy writes pretty well. And if you like that, then you can look for for Safe at Home, A Season in the Valley, which is another Valley League. That's a full-length book on the 2009 Rebels. I think it's timeless. It's not just tied to 2009. I think that story and the things that go on are an example of every season in small town summer league ball. And then I also wrote one called Father, Sons, and Holy Ghost Baseball as a Spiritual Experience. So if it sounds like this is my passion, yes, it is. And that little volume is my attempt to explain why people do get so passionate about baseball, because I think if you know a passionate baseball person, it is unique. It's different than football passion and other sports or even other arts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again. I appreciate the time. And I know that I have one of the book, Safe at Home. It's on the way to my house, so I'll be reading it very soon.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. You'll have to let me know what you think.
I will. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Erin.
All right, sports fans, that's going to do it for us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Austin is such a thoughtful guy, and it's always fun to sit down and talk to him. I'm a little jealous that I didn't get to join into this conversation, but I've definitely had more than my share, and it's only fair to share the wealth. That's what we do here in the Valley. We all want to see everyone succeed, and just a pleasure to see Erin and Austin talk about baseball from yet another perspective. Anyway, look forward to many more of those. We've got a really big, fun podcast coming up the day after Father's Day. It's our Father's Day tribute. We're going to sit down with Brett Fuller and Rich Fuller Brett's father was also instrumental in helping bring a team from Luray into Charlestown and ultimately into Purcellville. That podcast will be on Monday the 21st. And that's an exciting one because it's a look at the Valley League from 3 generations perspective. I'm sorry to say that Brett's father's not here, but we can certainly talk about the contribution he made and the time that Brett shared with him as they brought the team from Luray into where it is currently staged in Purcellville. If you haven't been to a Purcellville game, highly recommend it. Incredibly entertaining. They've got a great PA announcer. They do a wonderful job of entertaining their fans, and it's just a great venue. In fact, I'm encouraging everybody to do the Valley League Tour. Make arrangements to catch a game at each one of the venues. They all have a different personality, and they're all fun, and they're all tasty for different reasons. I'd love to hear which one you think has the best food. I personally have my favorites. If you don't know about the onions in Newmarket or the steak sandwich in Strasburg or many, many more, highly encourage you to come out to the Valley and check it out. We'll be open for business in the 2021 season. Until then, you're just going to have to dream about onions and steak sandwiches. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before I sign off, I want to wish you all perfect health, and I want to wish you all a speedy return to the baseball diamond. And until next time, on behalf of the league and the teams in this league, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And thank you for helping us share the magic of the Valley Baseball League baseball. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow night with another rewind game from the Valley League. It is day 16 in the Valley, and we are bringing you quite a matchup. Join us and check it out. Thanks, everybody.